Welcome to the Soaring Through Adversity podcast. Here's your host, Renee Bragelet.
The Soaring Through Adversity podcast is brought to you by Victory Advantage, a certified nonprofit where our mission is to provide pathways of hope and opportunities for successful independent living opportunities for those with cognitive and physical disabilities. Through candid conversations and insightful interviews, we provide a platform for their narratives to shine while empowering our listeners to take flight with awareness, empathy, and embodying living the Eagle Way. I am blessed with two guests today by the name of David Casper and Nate Clewell. Today's episode is titled Forklift and Fly. David E. Casper III, a distinguished native of Union County, North Carolina, is the Chief Executive Officer of Union Diversified Industries. He earned his undergraduate degree from Wingate University. Recognized for his exemplary leadership, David was honored as a trailblazer by Business North Carolina in 2020, and under his guidance, UDI received the Excellence of Business Award in the Nonprofit Innovations category from the Union County Chamber in 2021. David's career is marked by his dedication to enhancing the capabilities of staff working with individuals with developmental disabilities and mental health challenges. He is a certified lift and transfer trainer and a Red Cross certified instructor of first aid, CPR, and AED for all age groups. Additionally, he co-authored the Minimally Intrusive Intervention Techniques, a North Carolina state-approved curriculum offering alternatives to restrictive interventions. Beyond his professional endeavors in the IDD, MH, and SU field, David is an internationally licensed and ordained minister through the National Free Will Baptist Association. He has served in various capacities within the Beaver Creek Association of South Carolina, including church, planter, pastor, and evangelist. Currently, he continues his ministry work at a rural church in Monroe, North Carolina. David resides in Union County with his lovely wife, Amanda, and his charming son, Dex. He enjoys hunting, boating, and woodworking. Committed to community service, David is an active member of the Monroe Rotary Club, Emerging Leaders, MARC, NCARV, and the Coalition for Employment Choice. He holds positions on the executive board for the Monroe Rotary and the Transportation Activity Board for Union County, and previously served on the advisory committee for the Union County Boys and Girls Club. And folks, this is only the tip of the iceberg for today's episode. Let me introduce you to our rock star, Nate Clewell. He is a 33-year-old resident also of Union County. Nate was born with several challenges such as scoliosis, ADD, and moderate IDD, but continues to focus on his abilities and not his disabilities. He graduated high school prior to becoming employed at UDI over 12 years ago. He is a forklift operator and holds the title of Level 1 Production Technician. In his spare time, he enjoys fishing, swimming, yard work, family time, and church. He is also a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. Welcome, Nate and David. Are y'all ready to dig in?
Yes,
Sure.
ready.
Well, David, let me start with you. Tell us about yourself, your wife, your son.
Well, I would say knowing me is pretty simple. I'm here for people. That's why God put me on this planet. He put me here to help anyone I possibly can. And so if you know me, you know my heart is to just lift everyone around me. And so at the end of the day, if I'm tired and I'm wore out, hopefully the people around me are not tired and wore out. My wife has been a constant source of strength for me. She has stood beside me in the tough times and in the good times, just as she vowed to. And she has been a fantastic cheerleader for my professional growth as well as my spiritual growth. My son, I could tell you so many stories about
How old is
fun.
he?
He's 4. Well, he'll be 4 this year. So he's coming up on that 4th birthday. So he's just a bright, shining light in our life. It's a good thing to have a son and a child who just loves, and he's inquisitive. He is very manners. He just does very well with the yes, sir, no, sir, all those things.
So that's where, when you put in the bio, charming, that's where that comes from.
He is very charming. He is.
Manners at 4 years old. He needs to teach some other children that.
The favorite memory of mine is we were trying to tell his doctor, he was almost like 2, and we were trying to tell his doctor, his doctor was like, oh, does he know 5 words, 10 words? And I'm like, can we do like 500? And they were like, no. And he stands up and he shakes the doctor's hand as he goes, it's nice to meet you. My name's Dex. And the doctor's like, seriously? And he was like, I really like your stethoscope. And the doctor's like, unreal. So, I mean, he's just been very advanced, I would say. But I'm also partial. He's my kid.
Sounds like we'd all be impressed. When do you find time to hunt, boat, and woodwork?
Well, very rarely. Very, very rarely nowadays. Since I'm working, trying to take UDI to the next level, the church is growing. The backseat stuff has kind of taken its backseat, which, we all point our fingers at each other and say, oh, you need to take time for yourself. So what I've been doing has been golfing more.
Oh.
So I can, still do business in golf.
Absolutely. Do the business on the golf course.
Can't really,
multitask.
Can't really take a phone call in the hunting blind.
Well, when were you called to be a minister?
I was in college, and I had went through a very difficult time. I had lost a guy I grew up with, committed suicide. I had lost my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and I just kind of lost my way. And made my way back to a church on a Sunday morning and just kind of felt like it was time to stop running. And because I always felt like I should do something for God, he probably called me early on.
So you felt like you had been running from it.
Yeah, let me just be honest about it. I had been running. I felt like he called me early on.
Well, it's our timing sometimes, right?
And so I was sitting on the back pew of the church, as most people who have lost their way do sometimes. Or those people that want to make it first to the restaurant. I always say that, just to clarify. That way nobody feels out of place if they sit on the back pew. But I was sitting back there, and I felt like God said to me, today is the last day I'll ask you. And I was like, okay, I guess this is the day then. So I got up, I went to the altar, I gave my service to him. And the next day, shortly after that, the pastor of the church says to me, as we're shaking hands after I'm walking out that day, next Sunday you're on. And so I preached my very first sermon the following Sunday. And
that definitely was the time, and he wasn't going to ask any more because it was time.
Apparently. 6 months later, while I had switched my major, of course, to religion from accounting, and just...
An accountant to a preacher.
Yeah. So that was I was all in then. And 6 months later, I felt like God called me to start a church, so I started planting churches.
And how old were you at that point?
19.
Wow.
I guess you don't really get a say in when and what. So we planted our first church at 19.
Where was that at?
Right here in Monroe. It went self-supporting within the first month. So we needed no association support or anything like that. We got it up and operational. We bought our first piece of property within 2 years. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, it's been a pretty fun ride.
When you started listening to God's timing.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And I still, that little rural church, it ebbs and it flows just like most church does. God didn't call me to be the pastor of a big church. I've had plenty of opportunities. I've had plenty of churches ask. But that's not what I felt like.
So you went for the glory of God, not the glory of man.
I went the tent maker route. So if you know anything about Paul, he said when he was with you, if he didn't work, he didn't eat. He retained his tent making ability. So I've always been bivocational. For 23 years now in the ministry, I've been bivocational. I've earned my major source of income from whatever I've done with my hands or my mind, and preached for next to nothing or nothing. The first 5 or 6 years, I think it was nothing, and then, I think they started me out at $150 a week. So
it definitely wasn't for the money.
It was not for the money, or the fame. I did it strictly to see people's lives in a better place, and that's kind of been my motto. Just do it for, what you can get out of it in the next lifetime. not what you can get out of it in this lifetime.
You are a part of a lot of nonprofits, and you've received several awards. Which one gives you the most pride?
None of them. I take no pride in any award. Those are man-made things. What I'm looking for is the day when God says, well done. That's my only reward I want. And
That's great.
those awards are very nice. Don't get me wrong. It feels very nice to be honored. It feels, especially when it's a team award, like from the Chamber of Commerce when they notified us of our business winning. I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, most businesses don't.
Building relationships.
Yeah, it doesn't. That doesn't happen for most businesses. But for me, the rewards that mean something to me are things that man can't do, and that's always been something I've focused on. So, yeah, I will tell you just a quick story. My wife has always been one that will pick out a meaningful gift and give me as a memento for something big. And so the watch I'm wearing today, she gave me. It's emerald faced. It's got emerald color for 20 years. So she gave me this on my 20-year anniversary at our church.
Oh,
So things
thoughtful.
that to me, she awarded it to me as her husband and also her pastor, but that to me means something because no one else has to know about it. I think the Bible's pretty clear. You don't have to let everybody know about the things that you do. You can keep those quiet and he'll reward you for those.
That's right. Reward in heaven. Tell me about the manual that you co-wrote.
So co-authored might be a little bit of a bigger way to say it. When I went to UDI, the previous CEO, Mike Young, had wrote Minimally Intrusive Intervention Technique, and he wrote that way back in the 90s. Well, what happens in the state of North Carolina is these curriculums come up for renewal, and they have to meet current guidelines, and they have to have different things in them. Mike is retired, so Mike did it for us at UDI. That was the only curriculum they had ever known. So I had to go in and change the minimally intrusive curriculum, change the techniques, write in a couple of different chapters and a couple of different modules. So I would say I maybe did 25% or 30% of the work. Maybe organized it a little bit because, when you're writing something back in the 90s, it's not the same way as if you were to teach it now.
Yes.
I think I just added to it.
So you met a need.
Yeah, I just enhanced it a little bit and gave it the polish that it needed to meet the new state credentials.
Got it. Nate, don't get too comfortable. You're coming up now. Well, you have quite a few hobbies yourself.
Yep.
And I understand from just speaking with you before we started recording that you're a avid gamer.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you like about it?
I just like the time spending with my brothers, doing something one-on-one with them, just having just guy time, They like basketball or football, the Madden, NBA
So you're all
games.
about relationships as well.
Relationship is number one, God's number one. Relationships is number two.
And I saw where you've been at UDI for 12 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you also spend time at your church. What church do you go to?
I go to a church in Charlotte. It's an Orthodox church. Yeah, I started out as a Protestant Christian,
Mm-hmm.
I converted to Orthodoxy back in 2015 and gave my life to the Lord, and pretty much got baptized in a river,
In a river.
In a river, yeah.
Old school.
Old school, and like if Jesus can do it, I can do it too,
I love your attitude.
All my family did, There's about 7 or 8 of us who got
At the same time?
baptized, yeah.
Oh, what
day.
a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day.
Who is your greatest supporter, your greatest cheerleader?
I have a couple of those. But number one is my mom and dad, My mom and dad and my grandmother.
Yes.
I was with my grandmother for 13 years before she passed away.
You lived with her?
Yeah, she lived with us down here. She lived in Indiana, and we went to get her. You know?
Yeah.
And every time we take her back to Indiana, it tore it out of me.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to leave her. I want to stay. I want to stay with Grandma.
Strong family bond.
Yeah. I believe my mom and dad, of course my grandmother, I miss her a lot, God knows, but I know where she's at. She's
And you'll see her again. You'll see her again.
But anyway, greatest cheerleaders would have to be my mom and dad because they gave me a second chance at life.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Do you mind talking about your scoliosis?
Yes, ma'am. I don't mind doing that at all.
When were you first diagnosed?
I think I was 15 years old, you know.
Pain?
Yeah, lots of pain, you know. I was eating at Cracker Barrel, I think, in wherever we were at the time, but I think it was somewhere between Tennessee and Indiana. You know, we were in Tennessee, I think, headed to Indiana.
Yes.
And I think...
to see your grandmother?
Yeah. My family up north, you know. I have a lot of family up north. But anyway, we were headed that way, and we were eating, you know, and I was walking through, I guess, you know, one of the ladies, you know, was there, you know, at the time. I don't remember who it was, but she asked my mom, "What's wrong with that boy, you know? Why does he walk like that? What's wrong with his posture? Doesn't he know how to stand up straight?" You know, I'm thinking to myself, here we go.
Rude.
Yep. Mom's like, "Don't listen to her, Nate. Don't listen to her. We'll go to the doctor. We'll get it figured out."
There you go.
Just inside, something just hit me right there. You know, like,
Yes.
am I different? Something different?
You're different in a good way.
Yeah. At the time, I was like, that had to been the devil messing with me
Yes.
in my head, trying to get to me, saying, "You're no good, Nate. Just go listen to what she's saying. You're no good. You're messed up, you know."
You know, it's interesting that with
That's
some
the
of the
truth.
things that I've been through, it's I pride myself in wanting to help teach people how to treat people with disabilities, because I'm sure she wasn't mean. She was
No.
just ignorant to the fact of what she should say.
Yeah.
And your mom's response was, "Let's go get it checked out."
Yep. She's like, "Let's get it checked out," and we did. We went to 5 different
Like specialists?
specialists. Yeah, 5 different specialists, and the 5th one was the one that actually got it. You know, he says, "You have scoliosis of the spine."
Well, what kind of treatments have they given you? Because you look great.
Physical therapy. Many years of physical therapy.
Do you still take it?
I still take it, you know. My mom told me one time, she says, "If you strengthen your spiritual back, God will strengthen your physical
backbone.
back."
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's what she told me.
Well, God works everything for good.
Yep. And my grandmother told me one time, she said, "Nate, you're not mentally handicapped, man. You're what God made you to be."
So you could touch other people's lives.
Yep. I'm here for a reason. And I believe it's to enhance the guys at work, you know, help them see that they're not just a broken vessel. They're a doorway for God to work, you know.
Well, let's talk about UDI.
Yeah, let's do that.
David, what exactly is UDI? We've talked about a lot of acronyms today.
UDI is a nonprofit here locally in Union County. It stands for Union Diversified Industries. It was founded in 1970 by a group of individuals with the Monroe JCs, which, if you know anything about the history of the Monroe JCs, they were junior chamber members. And so they band together and they put a facility here in Union County for adults with special needs or adults with individual and intellectual disabilities
Which is IDD.
Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, to come and to have a day program. That day program was a vocational style program, so they recruited contracts to come in, and they would do piece rate work and do different tasks to be able to pay a wage to the people with disabilities. So UDI today, fast forward 53 years, we currently have about 44,000 square foot under roof. We support roughly 94 people with different disabilities each and every day in our programs. We have vocational style programs that also allow individuals to have community integration moments, that have life skills training moments, that have independence training moments, also combined with some leisure activities. So we take a holistic approach to supporting families. This past year, we've started, for the first time, really focusing on home and community-based services, which are outside of the 4 walls of UDI. So
Describe that a little bit more.
So that would be a UDI employee coming into your home to work with the individual in your home. Let's say it's, Johnny or Susie's, 10 or 12 years old. They can't go into a day program, but we can send staff to work with them in your home. after school or on the weekends or something like that. So our board voted to open up our mission statement for the first time outside of adults to be all age groups. So we are now supporting kids as well.
Oh, that's great. I did not know that.
Yeah, we're trying to fill the need here in the county. What most people might not understand is Union County is the 6th largest county in North Carolina. But when you look at penetration rates for state-funded services, we're kind of in the lower echelons of penetration rate, meaning that the money's not reaching the people it needs here in this county. Now, that could be for lack of providers, that could be for a lack of fund. It's just a lot of different reasons. I personally think it's because people don't know those services are out there. So we try to educate a lot. We try to support a lot of families in getting the services they may need. We started, for the first time here in Union County, long-term community support services, which is a newer service model that allows them to either live in their home or a group home and receive a day component services. We were very vocal in getting that service brought to Union County.
And that is very similar to the mission for the Victory Advantage that I am co-founder of, is to help people live independently. And I'm hoping to really become a partner of you guys as we move forward, because you guys have so much experience. And just listening to what you said about, all age groups, you're actually preparing tomorrow's workers.
Yes.
Today.
Yes. I think it's imperative for families to know their support's there as soon as possible. So we're compiling the list right now to do a mass blast to every doctor, therapist, hospital, whatever, and try to start getting a resource guide together that they can put in the hands of a child's family the moment they get a diagnosis, to say, here's what you need to do, here's the playbook, here's how to go about getting services here in Union County or in
the wait
North Carolina.
list.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable for independent housing.
But our legislators have done a really good job in that they have opened a 1915 I waiver, which is a little different than the innovations waiver, but it still offers some supports to people that are waiting on that 1915 what they call innovations waiver. So
explain that a little bit more.
So the innovations waiver is a comprehensive waiver. There are only so many allotted slots in the state every year, and those are fully funded service supports, right? So they can meet needs from $5,000 up into $175,000 basically. They also can do home modifications, vehicle modifications under that waiver. That is the waiver everybody gets in line for. But there are only a number of slots for that every year. And unless someone dies, those slots don't come open, right? Or they go into a assisted living facility or a state hospital or something like that.
Situation changes.
Move out of state, So the current construct they did is this 1915I stuff is part of the whole, tailored care plan rollout that happened July 1, and that's going to create access to these services sooner for people that don't have that waiver. I mean, there's some restrictions and some limits to it, but ultimately they're going to get some of the same services. And we are currently intaking people right now for some of those services at UDI. And it just started July 1, basically. So we're trying to get those services out to people. Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Well, let's take a break, and then I'm going to come back and ask both of you some joint questions.
Mm-hmm. The Soaring Through Adversity podcast is presented by Victory in Time. Victory in Time's mission is to help executives, leaders, and business owners excel in their faith, lives, and work. Through speaking engagements, one-on-one mentoring, and our mastermind groups, known as Victory Circles, Victory in Time wants to help you become the best leader you can be. Find out more at victoryintime.com. Also, don't forget to pick up your copy of the Soaring Through Adversity book, Life Lessons to Lead Triumph and Rise Above. All net proceeds from sales of the Soaring Through Adversity book benefit Victory Advantage.
Okay, Nate, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you love the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, starting out, I was actually a Panthers fan.
Yes, of course.
And I got, like I said, baptized, in Orthodox faith.
Mm-hmm.
And they have godfathers, godmothers,
Yes.
spiritual family that you inherit after you get baptized in the Orthodox faith. I inherited Eagles fans, die hard from Philadelphia,
Oh.
And they told me, they said, you're a Panthers fan. You can't come in this house unless you're an Eagles fan. So I'm like, what do I do?
So you were coerced.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, they're my godparents. Got to do what your parents tell you to do. So,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to do that.
Well, we all have our reasons for why we follow our favorite teams.
So, yes.
That's an interesting story there.
Ever since I've been an Eagles fan. And I, of course, have buddies who are Eagles fans as well. So,
Well, I have a question.
man,
What does UDI mean to you, Nate?
UDI means everything. It's not just a place to work. It's a place that you can go and you can be somebody, You can go and you don't have to look over your shoulder waiting for somebody to confront you about how you look or what you're wearing or how you talk or your disability,
So I have a saying that I love to think about, and it's that people look at you with their eyes, but they see you with their heart.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to visit UDI, and it is a happy place.
Yes, ma'am, it sure is.
It's what I would think that a little slice of heaven is going to feel like. Tell us what a day looks like for you.
A day that looks like for me would be walking through those double doors and leaving everything outside that doesn't belong, leaving all the worldly problems I might have, leave them outside. Because if I take them inside, it just brings a rift into the building. It's a chain reaction, You don't want to go in there with an attitude because it'll set people wrong.
Oh, you go in there with an attitude, but it's a good one.
It's a good attitude. You want to go in with a good attitude. You want to have
Yes.
respect. That's what we build off. It's number one thing around there. You don't ever have to worry about somebody disrespecting you. And we love each other, We're brothers. I clock in. I'm a staff at UDI, Started out as a client, though. But down the road, I progressed, I persevered through things, and became a staff. I get on the forklift every day, do the job I'm told to do. Sometimes I have to ask it twice, because of my disability, because it doesn't feel good when I make a mistake.
Well, I'm sure you're not the only one to do that.
No. But the guys back there, they understand, they work with you.
So can I help you here?
Yes, sir. You can help me.
So
I need some help.
when Nate clocks in the morning, one of his first tasks is to ensure that work gets placed out for everyone in the building. So we have,
So you are like a lead.
Yeah.
so he has, what do you think, 90 people
90
that
people.
he has to help get all the stuff set up for.
David, I see why you stepped in, because he's not wanting to brag on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not going to brag on himself, so I'm going to brag on him. So there's 90 people, and each one of them have various abilities.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that each one of them has the products that they can complete, right? Because some of our stuff is a little more complex for folks that might have a different ability. And some stuff is a little more repetitive or a little more not counting or whatever it may be. So the job fits their skill level.
That's right.
So you make sure all that gets on the table
Oh, yeah,
in the
definitely.
appropriate quantities, because some of our folks have earning restrictions, not because UDI doesn't want to pay them, but because the federal government only allows people to earn a certain amount of money before they start losing their benefits, right? So that's one
That's
of
a
the
whole.
things
That's a whole nother story.
that's a whole nother podcast. So anyways, once he gets all that work out, then his job is to make sure that anyone that needs support in completing that work gets that support. So if someone's struggling to assemble something, he goes around and helps them assemble it. So then he does quality control checks. So he's checking work to make sure it's done properly, that it matches the diagrams, right? Because we have diagrams for everything. Yeah.
Samples for everything.
And so if somebody needs a sample, he'll make them a new sample,
Yep,
right?
That's right.
And so then
You
once
keep
he
the
does,
place running.
Oh, yeah.
of course, him and his whole
course.
team.
We got.
He's
the
got
best team, about
10 guys
10
back
guys,
there. Yeah. And so once they get all that done, then they got to get that work off the floor.
That's right.
So the way we get that off the floor is buggies and barrels, right? So they get that stuff off the floor. Then Nate helps them get them weighed. And so they have to weigh all these buggies and barrels, which have tear weights on them, so that we know exactly how many pieces are in there, so we know what's shipping out the door. And so once we get that stuff in the right bins, then we have to forklift that stuff to the back, get it ready lined up for deliveries. We have deliveries 2 to 3 days a week. And so once delivery truck's back in on our docks, he jumps on the forklift. Yeah. So that's a day in the life of. Now, what's unique about Nate is that he said he started as a client.
Okay, explain that.
So he come to us for services and support. He was able to work through his goals and meet all his vocational stuff to where we just hired him on full time. So he doesn't receive supports and services from us anymore.
So you do the training to
Yep.
get them ready for the position.
Yeah, or to go somewhere else and work. Like, I fully believe if he wanted to, he could work in any warehouse in America.
Yes, he could. He said he would have to ask the question 2 or 3 times. I think I'd have to, with the list you just ran off, I think I'd have to ask about 10 times.
Exactly. So what's unique about him is he doesn't really need to work a 40-hour week. So he works a modified schedule at UDI, meaning he might work 25, 28 hours a week. And then the other time that he's at UDI, he gets to engage in our activities. So if we're going out that month to bowl or something as part of our community integration, he'll go tag along and go bowling with them. Or if most of our individuals are going to go, like last month you guys went, I think, to like a baseball game, so he went to the baseball game with them. He kind of gets the best of both worlds. He gets the staff side, right, to where he gets all the hours that he needs and wants. He gets all the lunches with us, and then he gets to go out and hang out with them too. So he's on both sides of the equation.
You're living the life.
Yeah, he is. And there's no one in our building on either side of that equation, client or staff, that could think about it any differently.
I see on your hat it says Nate Dog. Is
Yep.
that your nickname?
Yep, my brother-in-law actually gave me that nickname, you know. It's about 15. He's like, dude, you get out and you do things, I mean, like I never seen. You're like a work dog. I'm like, nah, I'm Nate Dog, man. Let's go.
I like it. Well,
I
how do
love
you,
my family, though. My family's the biggest support, you know.
that was one of my questions. So your family is one of your greatest cheerleaders.
Yes, and I actually have something to put in that, you know. I have 13 siblings altogether.
Oh my goodness.
10 of us adopted, though.
Your parents are amazing.
They had 3 birth kids. But I'll tell you, the first one that was adopted, he works at UDI with us. And without him, we would not be here. My mom and dad hadn't said yes, you know.
Yes.
It took God to do what they do, you know. It takes God. You know?
They're
Power
angels
of
here
God.
on earth.
Mr. and Mrs. Clewell have always been some of the kindest people that I know. I met Nate's family prior to coming to UDI in a different capacity. I used to work for a much larger organization that provided services and supports all across the nation. And it was Easter Seals, which, I mean, if you remember the old Easter
Yes.
Seals campaigns and
Yes.
food line, that was us. And so we provided supports all across the nation. Specifically here in North Carolina, it was in North Carolina and Virginia. And so I was over a team out of Charlotte, and I covered the Charlotte market. And I had to do like work-based assessments on people that were coming out of high school and seeing if they could go into a workplace and survive, not survive, but thrive, basically, or if maybe they needed some training in a program like UDI or similar programs. And so that's how I met Nate's family.
That's right.
Was doing an assessment for one of the brothers. And when I come to UDI, that brother, Nate, another brother, another brother, there were quite a few there at UDI, and all of them doing well. Very thankful for Mr. and Mrs. Clewell. They just kept saying yes to some very challenging moments and situations, but they have done extremely well.
Are you familiar with a nonprofit called Johnny and Friends?
No, I'm not, to be honest with you.
Well, we need to talk about that. They
Okay.
have some marvelous retreats for families that just like yours.
Yeah.
That has a high concentration on the caregivers,
Okay.
which is a beautiful thing. So we can talk about that later. But it
Yeah.
is Johnny and Friends.
Okay. Okay.
How do you become a client of UDI?
So anyone can make a referral to UDI, whether that's a family member, a case manager, a school teacher. You just call up UDI, or numbers listed online. It's 704-289-1571. You ask to speak to one of our clinical intake people. I think it might be even option 2, and it'll route you to a live person during our business hours. And you can ask to do a referral. Once that referral happens, we have a time frame set in place to where we will reach out to the family, have the conversation, schedule them to come see what we're about, have the conversation about what supports and services they may need. We'll go through what we call a planning process with them, and they get an actual individual specific plan. And then we start getting the authorizations and approvals from the MCO, which is a managed care organization here locally that funds all of the supports and services. And then we assign the staff to work with them, and or we set a start date for the day program. So anyone with a documented IDD diagnosis prior to the age of 21 who lives and resides in North Carolina, we can probably
So it's
assist.
North Carolina, not Union County.
Well, we support people right now in that fringe area of Mecklenburg, and we support people that come from Anson in. We can really support anybody in our catchment area. We're contracted with all 4 major MCOs here in North Carolina.
And MCO stands for what again?
Managed Care Organization.
Okay.
Our focus is Union County right now.
Well, can you guys share any memorable moments or lessons learned from your journey with UDI?
I've learned how to be a friend, a brother, and pretty much a teacher, teach them how to get along with each other, and be like, hey man, that's not right, you shouldn't do that, help them so they don't have to go see the boss, and keep them out of trouble. Like, I've been there before,
So you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do what it takes.
Yeah, do what it takes to keep them out of trouble, because I don't want them to have to go and have the talk, and because David's a good man and all. I mean, the best boss man could have,
Yeah. Now, so now you're gonna brag on him a little bit.
Oh yeah, well, that's we do that every day. Like, how you doing, boss man? He comes to the work floor. How you doing, boss? It's awesome. But anyway, one lesson I'll say that was keeping my mouth shut when I need to, because there have been times where I could have lost my temper and stuff and said things I shouldn't say,
Okay.
due to my
When things get tough.
when things get tough,
Yes.
I tend to say things I don't mean,
Yes.
I have a thing where I like to bottle things up, like if not let them go immediately, and I think about it too much, and then it might be months, that go by, and then something happens I don't like, and I open it up. Boom, it's like a volcano, it erupts,
Well, Nate, I think that describes me too.
Yeah, but
I think we all tend
it's-
to avoid a confrontation sometimes. So.
Yeah. So there's a gentleman, his name is Connor Seacrest. The best production manager you can have, but he's there in case I need to speak to him, or help me calm down over something, that I can't do by myself. And of course my buddy Drew, he's a staff as well, and he's always there. Them 2 guys, we'll go in there, we'll talk it out, whatever it is. They'll listen to you. They give you time to cool off, and then we'll talk it out, and then they'll address the situation, whatever it may be. And,
So they get to the root cause.
yeah, they get to the problem. They get whatever it is, they'll nip it. They take care of it. I know Connor's a Christian just like I am, and I know that I can go to him, Michael McLam, or David Casper himself, and I can trust those guys that what I say doesn't leave that room wherever I'm at,
He's telling you his support around him.
Yes.
It's like that not only for our individuals we support, but all of our staff. We have open door policies. If something's bothering someone and they need someone to talk to, we want them to be able to come to us. We keep a employee assistance program that if they need counseling, they can grab that 1-800 number anonymously and call in. We want to make sure that everyone has the support they need to thrive in every situation. And sometimes that means that you got to stop production and take some time to get through something. And so if Nate needs to stop and go talk. That's what we do.
Yep.
But that's the humanity in what we do. And I think that doesn't speak about disability as much as it speaks about compassion and empathy.
The motto is that we enhance lives, and keep people happy, They give them something to live for, Give them a purpose in life. That's what I believe UDI is, because I walked through those doors 12 years ago, and I was scared to death, to tell you the truth. I didn't know what was going down. I'd never seen anything like it before. But it was awesome. And then I progressed, It's like climbing a ladder, You want to get to the top? Well, I got as far as I need to go.
You can have my job.
No, boss. No. That's you. That's all you. You can have that. No, you earned that. I do what I do. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to go anywhere else.
Our society has not stepped up to the plate and given a place for people with disabilities to get to the table and earn their spot, just like the rest of us have.
We all have gifts.
Every single one of us. And so we're working currently with the Chamber of Commerce and the DEI committee to bring to HR representatives next year in their conference how to hire, support, train, do all that stuff for people with disabilities, because after hearing this guy's heart, tell me there's not one employer that doesn't want their people showing up like that every day.
Well, and what I have said about people with disabilities, they figure out things every day, all day long. So they're some of the best employees that you could ever have.
Well, I always say, there's some very famous people that would qualify for services at UDI.
Yes.
I mean, some very famous people that own big major companies that are publicly traded. I won't call anybody's name because that's their own story, but it is astonishing to me why our society has not been as accepting and open to people of all abilities for as long as we've lived. I think that's been my job, is to put on display people who have normally been relegated to the sidebar conversation. And UDI currently has had 5 consecutive years since I've took over of record production. When everyone else during the pandemic was slowing down, UDI doubled in size. We hit every number. We didn't miss a shipment. We met the demand. But a lot of states, and this is what most people don't know, a lot of states are putting things in place to prevent companies like UDI from doing this model of service. And so they don't want people with disabilities working in a more controlled environment that is more supportive like we are. And they hinge it on the premise that they're being abused, or they're being taken advantage of, or that we're not paying them enough money, or whatever, because we operate with a commensurate wage.
Which you have to because of the government.
The government is very fickle, let me say that.
Very good way to put it.
Who is in office and who are in positions, they're either for or against it, right? So I also, one of the organizations I work with, Preservation of Employment Choice, our job is to educate our elected officials about what 14C is, what that does, how that helps people like Nate get his footing in life and ultimately become one of our best production workers. Have
a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. And I always tell the story of 2 people. I tell the story of a person hypothetically named Mary and a hypothetically named Scott, right? So you got Mary and Scott, they have the same diagnosis, F71, and that's moderate IDD. They need very similar supports in their home environment. Scott may be a little more independent in certain daily living skills than Mary. Mary is a social butterfly, has a whole different approach to life. They come in, they sit down at their work table. Mary might work 5 minutes and then she wants to paint her nails, hug somebody, talk, color, do the rest of the stuff. She might work 5 more minutes after lunch. Now, I can't pay Mary a full day of work, right? Scott comes in, he sits down, he works from bell to bell. He doesn't want to talk to nobody. He doesn't even want to take lunch. So when you look at what they earn, Mary might make the equivalent of a few bucks an hour. Scott, he makes more than the staff that work with him.
So it's more like a production pay.
Yeah, it's a per piece pay. Not staff, of course, they're on hourly wages. Anybody that is not producing per piece, but the folks that work piece rate at our company that we give services to, they are on a piece rate.
But that's not
pay.
That's not an odd model.
No, because real estate agents only get paid for the houses they sell.
Exactly.
Doctors only get paid for the patients they see.
That's right.
Financial representatives only get paid on the accounts they sell.
That's right.
Insurance agents, it's the same thing. Everyone is working per piece, per mile, per job. Except for people with disabilities, people are like, well, they shouldn't be able to do that. No, everybody needs to be able to work and earn their own way. If we can have special wages for waitresses, then we can have special wages for others. Or special wages for camp counselors, we can have special wages for others. So I'm a huge proponent of our model, but some states aren't, and some people aren't in this society. Even here locally, we get some pushback from some of the advocates in our field, and I always say, if they're not working here, they're not working. And I'd rather them be working, because some of those folks, their families need that money.
It would be my dream for more privately held corporations to hire people with disabilities, to learn the abilities that they have.
If I have anything to do with it, I'm going to try to help that happen right here in Union County. But I think what we find is when we talk about people hiring disabilities, that ADA is a bigger category than most people recognize. Like anyone with heart disease falls under ADA.
Yes.
So when they say we've got 500 employees with disabilities, then what if like 60 of them have had a heart attack and now they have heart failure? And so they're counting those folks who were CFOs and COOs.
So they're skirting the purpose.
That's right. they're shading the numbers.
Yes.
And one of the things I found staggering is when they count unemployment statistics, normally they consider somebody employed if they have a disability and are actively searching for a job. Well, that's not employed. So it throws the statistics off.
So they have a job.
No, they don't. They don't have a job. They're looking for a job.
So they're being counted.
Yeah. It's unbelievable the kind of ways that they shade the employment numbers for people with disabilities. But over 75% of people with disabilities are unemployed.
75%.
Yep.
75%. Well, let me ask you a question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave, David?
Oh, somebody asked me, what did I want on my tombstone one time? And I simply said, I had a professor named G. Burns Coleman at Wingate. I don't know if you ever met G. Burns Coleman, but phenomenal man. And I can remember him standing one time in he taught like 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. classes. Well, in college, you don't want those, right? So if you're a student right now and you're listening, if you get the 8 and the 9 a.m. classes, just suck it up, get through them, and try better next semester.
Well, but you're going to have to do that eventually.
Yeah. So, but it's college, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., that's not what you want. So, but he was my 8 a.m. religion professor, and I remember him saying, when you get to heaven, the two questions he thought God was going to ask you is, did you love God and did you love man? And if you can say yes to both of those, then you'll get in. And so I want my legacy to be, he loved God and he loved his fellow man.
That's fantastic. Nate, how about you?
He was a hard worker. He loved Jesus, and that he loved his friends and his family.
You're headed in that direction.
100%.
All right.
And also that that he served UDI for so many years. That's it. I mean,
that's it.
I just want to say, Renee, thank you so much for having us, for giving us an opportunity to share a little bit about UDI, a little bit about our hearts and our journeys to get to where we are. I think Nate would echo those sentiments. But I think it's imperative that people give a platform for this kind of stuff. And so thank you for doing that here locally and everywhere you go. I mean, I've seen other podcasts you're on. I've read some of your book. I mean, it's phenomenal when people just care about others. And so thank you for that.
Each week, I define my guests with one of the many leadership traits of an eagle. David demonstrates the trait of an eagle with his majestic appearance. David, you, like the eagle, lives his life with dignity and creates a secure and nurturing environment for others. And Nate is the embodiment of an eagle in powerful flight, ambitious with determined goals that seize from a higher perspective for a greater purpose. Thank you for being my guest today, and thank you to our listeners for your valuable time. Follow us on this podcast platform for new episodes of the Soaring Through Adversity podcast, published on the first day of each month. For more information about living the Eagle Way and Victory Advantage, please go to thevictoryadvantage.org. Once again, that is thevictoryadvantage.org. And always remember, faith first, not last, and living the Eagle Way will lead to victory in time.